My 20-year-old brother is dating a 46-year-old woman, and everything feels wrong. I know people like to say age is just a number, but when your 20-year-old brother starts dating someone who's been alive longer than the internet, it stops being a number and starts being a flashing red warning sign. Let me back up a bit. My name's Adam. I'm 28. I work in tech support hell, live in a 2-bedroom apartment with too many plants I never water, and I thought I had a semi-normal family. Until my younger brother, Kyle, decided to introduce us to his girlfriend. He said it casually over a greasy Sunday breakfast at Mom's. Her name's Vera, he said, biting into a lukewarm croissant. She's older. How much older? I asked, sipping burnt coffee and trying not to choke. She's 46, I laughed. He didn't. I laughed harder, because surely he was trolling us. He's always been the prankster. Once convinced our cousin he had a twin in Canada, but then he pulled out his phone and showed us a picture. And holy hell, Vera was real. She was beautiful in that I do yoga in a forest and make my own sourdough way. Sharp cheekbones, long blonde hair, and the kind of eyes that screamed, I know more about taxes and disappointment than you ever will. But also, older, as in closer to Mom's age than Kyle's. Mom went silent. You know that silence parents do when they're about to say something wildly judgmental, but remember the therapist said to choose love? Yeah, that. Dad, ever the diplomat, just muttered, well, but Kyle beamed like a kid showing off his first drawing. She's different. She listens to me. She makes me feel seen. And I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to believe it was some kind of deep soul connection, not a midlife crisis meeting a quarter-life one. But then things got weirder. Vera wasn't just dating Kyle. She was managing him, scheduling his life, texting him reminders, suggesting he take a break from college to find his real path. Suddenly, he was meditating, talking about moon cycles, drinking lung-cleansing tea, and stopped playing video games. This is the same kid who once played Call of Duty for 18 hours straight and claimed pizza rolls were a food group. And then, I saw her for the first time, in person. It was a small dinner at Kyle's place. Vera brought homemade lentil stew and I brought beer. She greeted me with a hug that lasted just a second too long and a perfume that smelled like patchouli and passive aggression. You must be Adam, she said, eyes scanning me like a therapist pricing my trauma. We talked, she talked, about energy fields, about how Kyle was emotionally stunted before he met her, about how younger men need guidance. I tried to joke, you mean like a babysitter? She smiled. The kind of smile a wolf might give a sheep that thinks it's funny. And then came the moment. She said it. Honestly, I think Kyle's parents should be proud. Most boys his age are lost, but he's found someone who truly nurtures him. She said this while sitting next to our mother. I saw Mom's jaw tighten. Dad choked on his lentil. Kyle just smiled like he was on a spiritual cleanse and hadn't noticed his entire family dying inside. I wanted to believe it was just awkward, that maybe this was just an odd couple thing and we'd all move on. But then Vera looked me straight in the eye and said, you know, Adam, not everyone has the capacity to understand higher connections. It takes emotional maturity, and I swear, just for a second, I saw something in her face. A twitch, a flicker, something not quite right, like a mask slipping, and I couldn't shake it. Because that night, after everyone left, I got a message from an unknown number. You don't know who she really is, be careful. I didn't sleep, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since, but I had no idea the real nightmare was about to begin. The reveal, she was married. And it gets worse after that anonymous message. You don't know who she really is. Be careful. I couldn't stop pacing. I did what any suspicious older brother would do at 2:37 a.m. I opened my laptop, cleared my browsing history, and started digging. I Googled Vera plus fraud, Vera plus arrest record, Vera plus manipulative cougar with cult vibes. Okay, maybe that last one was petty, but I was desperate. At first, nothing. a Facebook page filled with filtered yoga poses and blurry nature photos, an Instagram that hadn't been updated since 2019, a Pinterest board called Lunar Cleanse Recipes, nothing suspicious unless you consider turmeric enemas a red flag. But then I checked LinkedIn, and her real name wasn't Vera, that was her middle name. Her full legal name, found in the footer of some ancient PDF about Reiki certifications, was Veronica Lilith Petrovna Summers. Double last names, triple the drama. I plugged that into a public record scraper and boom, court filings, real estate lawsuits, and one interesting document filed just 3 months ago. Divorce petition filed by her husband. His name was Daniel Summers, age 49, lives less than 10 miles away. I sat there reading the summary 3 times, heart pounding like I was defusing a bomb made of lentils and lies. She was still legally married. I felt nauseous. But the real gut punch? The reason the hairs stood up on my arms like soldiers? The grounds for the divorce were listed as infidelity with a significantly younger male. I didn't want to believe it. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe there's another Veronica Lilith Petrovna Summers seducing 20-year-olds in my area. But then I opened the divorce filings attachments. There were screenshots, blurry but unmistakable. Kyle, sitting across from Vera in a cafe holding hands. Another image of them walking into what looked like a yoga studio together. A third one, a video still, with her kissing him in her car. In daylight, no attempt to hide it. And the kicker? A brief witness statement from the private investigator Daniel hired. It included Kyle's full name and his age. The subject, Kyle, age 20, is involved in a romantic and potentially exploitative relationship with Veronica Summers. Multiple observed interactions suggest grooming behavior and undue influence. I froze. Undue influence. The words echoed in my skull like gunshots in an empty church. I don't know how long I sat there, reading the report over and over again. My hands were shaking, my mouth dry. Was Kyle being manipulated, used as revenge? A spiritual rebound? I printed the file, every page, stuffed them in a folder, slept for maybe 20 minutes. The next morning I drove to Mom's. She was in the kitchen watering her ferns aggressively. "You heard from Kyle?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "He's staying with her now," she muttered. "Didn't even come home last night." I nodded. "We need to talk," and then I showed her the folder. She didn't speak for a full minute. Her lips pressed together, hands trembling slightly as she read the affidavit. When she reached the line about potential grooming, she dropped the papers. This is sick," she whispered. "We called Dad, we called Kyle, he didn't pick up. So I drove to Vera's. It was a sunny day, birds chirping, kids on bikes, people living normal lives. Meanwhile, I was walking into the mouth of the psychological equivalent of Midsummer. I knocked. She opened the door in yoga pants and a silk robe. "Oh, Adam," she said, eyebrow arched. "Would you like some herbal tea?" "No," I said flatly. "Is Kyle here? He's meditating. Wake him." Her smile flickered. "That's not how we do things here." I pushed past her. The apartment was full of crystals, dream catchers, and overpriced minimalist furniture. Kyle was on a mat, eyes closed, humming to some ambient whale sounds. "Hey," I said, shaking him. "Get up." He blinked. "What are you doing here, man?" I handed him the folder. He skimmed the top page. Confusion turned to denial. Then, rage. "Are you spying on Vera?" "She's married," I said quietly. "No, she's not." "She is. I have the court records. You're listed in them. As the other man." Vera walked in, voice syrupy and sharp. "This is a violation. You came into my sacred space." "Save it," I snapped. "You lied to him. You manipulated him." Kyle stood up, breathing hard. "Is this true?" he asked her, voice cracking. She smiled sadly. "I was separated, emotionally. Long before legally, that's not a no." She reached for his hand. He pulled away. That was the first time I saw her face change. No longer calm, just cold. You don't understand, Kyle. Your brother is afraid of your growth, of your awakening. Oh my God, Kyle muttered. You used me. Silence. She didn't deny it, and for a moment, her mask fully dropped. Maybe I did, she said. But you wanted to be used. You wanted someone to tell you who you were, and I did. I made you better. He stared at her like he'd just woken up from a long, dark dream. I think you should leave, I told her. She laughed, then screamed, a blood-curdling, furious wail that made the crystal wind chimes in her window shake. She threw the folder across the room, papers scattered like snowflakes of truth. Kyle and I walked out. He didn't say anything in the car, just stared out the window. When I dropped him off at Mom's, he turned and said, I'm such an idiot. No, I said, you were targeted. He nodded, just once. But that was before the news broke, and people started choosing sides. Turns out, I only scratched the surface. She was in his life before we ever knew. Kyle didn't talk much for the first few days after we walked out of Vera's place. He mostly slept, ate in silence, watched old cartoons like he was trying to regress into a time before lentils and crystal therapy. I stayed over at Mom's for a bit. She didn't say it, but I knew she was scared he'd go back to Vera. Trauma bonding's a hell of a drug. But the real storm hit 5 days later, when the divorce papers leaked. Don't ask me how. Maybe Daniel was pissed enough to release them. Maybe someone at the court clerk's office has a Reddit addiction. Either way, the documents went viral. Headline, 46-year-old wellness guru accused of grooming 20-year-old boyfriend amid divorce scandal. Subheading, claims of manipulation, control, and spiritual exploitation rock the local yoga community. There was even a podcast episode about it. Some crunchy spiritual influencer dissected the whole story under the title, When Love Smells Like Patchouli and Grooming Charges. Kyle's name was blurred, but people figured it out. He started getting DMs, some supportive, most not. Bro, how TF do you end up in a MILF cult? You're disgusting. 20 is legal, but it ain't right. Blink twice if she made you drink moon blood. He deactivated Instagram, deleted Twitter, turned off his phone, and just like that, my little brother, who once couldn't shut up about his fantasy football league, became a ghost in his own life. But that's not the worst part. The worst part came when I got an email, a burner Gmail account, no message, just an attachment. It was a screenshot, a chat log between Vera and another guy, younger than Kyle. Dated 2 years ago, same pattern, praise, control, cutting off his friends, getting him to drop out of school. His name was Jesse. I Googled him. He was dead. Overdose. No one ever blamed Vera. No investigation, no trail. But the dates lined up. The tone of the messages, identical. She'd said to Jesse the same thing she said to Kyle. You're special. You don't need their approval. You're my mirror. You reflect my energy. They're just jealous. They don't understand us. It was copy-paste abuse, and I felt cold all over. Kyle wasn't the first. He might not be the last, so I told him. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the messages, his mouth a thin line. Then he whispered, she said Jesse moved to Canada. That night he barely slept. Next morning he texted Vera one last time. If you ever contact me again, I go public with everything. You hurt people, you hurt me. We both know what you are. She replied with one word, ungrateful. The legal stuff started soon after. Daniel wanted Kyle to testify in the divorce hearing, not just about the affair, but about the manipulation. Apparently, Vera was trying to claim emotional abuse by him. Let me repeat that. She was accusing Kyle of emotionally abusing her. A 46-year-old yoga entrepreneur accusing a 20-year-old college dropout of coercion. I told him not to do it, that it would ruin his mental health, drag his name through the mud, but he said something I'll never forget. If I don't say it happened, then maybe it didn't, and I'll be stuck with that version forever. He testified. I went with him, sat outside the courtroom while he told a judge about the time she took his phone for digital detox. How she made him sign a soul contract on recycled paper. and how she told him his family was a vibrational block. I'm not exaggerating. She actually said that. Daniel won the divorce. But Vera? She rebranded. I shit you not. 3 weeks later, a new Instagram popped up on Goddess Rebirth. Bio, shadow work healer, tantric coach, reclaiming my power after abuse. She flipped the script, turned herself into the victim, and people believed her. A thread on TikTok painted Kyle as a naive abuser and Vera as a survivor reclaiming sensuality. Influencers reposted it. She gained 12K followers in a month. Meanwhile, Kyle stayed in his room, barely functioning. I tried everything. Therapy, walks, jokes, even brought home a puppy once, hoping some serotonin would kick in. Nothing worked. Then, one night, we got drunk, real drunk, sitting on the porch with a bottle of rum and a Bluetooth speaker blasting sad alt rock, and he told me something I never expected. You know how I met her? I shook my head. She was at my high school graduation. What? I was 17. She was giving a talk. Life after school, some new age self-actualization crap. I didn't remember her face till months later, but she remembered mine. He paused, stared at the stars like they owed him something. She messaged me a year later, said she felt a cosmic connection back then. I felt my skin crawl. She was grooming you before you even knew it, I whispered. He nodded, and then he said, what if Jesse went through the same thing? What if she found him when he was still in school? I didn't answer, because I knew the answer. And I think Kyle did too. A few months passed. Kyle changed, slowly. He started journaling, working again, volunteering at a local support group for emotionally abused young men. He told his story anonymously. People reached out. One guy said he was almost recruited into Vera's men's healing circle, her next target. That's when it hit me. She's not done. She never will be. I wrote a post on Reddit, not this one, a warning in R raised by narcissists. It went semi-viral. A woman messaged me, said she knew Vera. They were neighbors years ago. She said Vera had been dating another boy then, 19. He moved out in the middle of the night and never spoke again. She also said Vera had a sister, estranged, who teaches psychology in a completely different city. Guess what that sister published 2 years ago? A paper on pathological narcissism and spiritual abuse in female-led relationship dynamics. I read the paper. Vera was in it. Not by name, but by method, her whole playbook. So what now? Kyle's rebuilding slowly. He's not better. He'll never be who he was before her. But he's alive, grounded. Me? I've started writing more, documenting stories like this, not for Reddit karma, not for likes, just so it's out there, so people know. Because predators don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they burn sage and whisper affirmations, and just when we thought it was over, we saw her again. In the most unexpected place. I thought she was gone, until we saw her at my dad's funeral. Let me preface this with something I now know for sure. Abusers don't disappear. They rebrand, they relocate, they evolve. And just when you think they're out of your life for good, they show up somewhere sacred, somewhere you never thought evil would dare to tread. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me rewind 6 months. After Kyle's court testimony and Vera's viral rebrand, things quieted down. For a while at least. Kyle moved out of mom's, got a job at a local print shop, started night classes in psychology of all things. I think he wanted to understand how his mind had been hacked. He looked better, stronger, still quiet, but not dead inside. He even started dating again, a girl named Anya, a barista with a septum ring and no interest in yoga or moon charts. She liked terrible horror movies and once called Vera a sentient goop candle, so obviously I approved. As for me, I was good. Almost. I'd changed too. Became paranoid, hyper-aware of manipulation tactics, maybe a little too protective of Kyle. But I was healing. Then Dad died. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. It happened in the garage with his tools still out and his coffee half drunk. I found him, and for a moment I thought he was sleeping, peacefully even. But the silence, it was wrong. Still in the way death always is. The funeral was small. Family, friends, a few neighbors. Dad had always been quiet, so he didn't want a big thing. We did our best. Clean suits, muted flowers. Kyle said a few words, voice shaking but proud. Mom just cried. I held her hand the whole time. She squeezed back like she was trying to keep from falling. And then, halfway through the service, I saw her. Back row, sunglasses, black scarf. That same scent I remembered from Vera's apartment, lavender, sage, and something fake sweet underneath. My pulse spiked. I walked out of the chapel, needed air, needed to breathe. But as I stepped into the courtyard, I felt a presence behind me. You look well, Adam. I turned. She lowered her sunglasses. Vera, same smirk, same chilling calm. You need to leave, I said, my voice low, cold. I just wanted to pay my respects, she said. Your father was kind. You don't belong here. I wasn't going to make a scene, but she already had. The air around her felt wrong, like she brought something with her. A psychic smog. Why? I asked. Why show up now? Her smile dropped for half a second, then came back, but it didn't reach her eyes. I was curious, she said simply. Her closure, perhaps. For all of us. For you, I said. Always for you. I turned to walk away, but then she said something that stopped me cold. I forgave him, you know. I froze. Who? She tilted her head. Kyle. My blood turned to ice. He was just a boy, she said. He didn't understand what we had. I stepped toward her, inches away, my fists clenched. If you talk to him again, I whispered, I'll make sure you're legally destroyed. She chuckled, a sound like glass breaking under silk. You don't scare me, Adam. No, I said, but I know your pattern now, and I've documented everything. She leaned in, voice almost tender. Do you really think you're the only one I've ever lost? And just like that, she turned and walked away. I didn't tell Kyle, not right away. I didn't want to break him again. But something inside me twisted, or some part of me that had to know, was she just passing through, or was this the beginning of something darker? So I did what I do best. I investigated. Turns out, Vera had moved. Not far, a town over, opened a retreat center for male spiritual healing. Guess what the name was? Phoenix Men, tagline, rising from toxic shame into awakened masculinity. I wanted to scream, to post screenshots, to contact every one of her new clients, but I didn't. Instead, I started collecting names, posts, phrases. I had a full Google Drive folder titled Vera Doctrine, Do Not Engage. Her blog was full of pseudo-scientific bile and spiritual gaslighting. If your family doesn't support your inner truth, cut them out. Blood is karmic debt. Age doesn't define the soul. We connect across lifetimes. Shame is just resistance from lower vibrations. I copied everything, archived pages, even made a burner Instagram to follow her private stories. And one day, I saw him, Jesse's brother, in a tagged post, smiling, laughing, sitting next to Vera. I DM'd him immediately. He responded. We talked. He didn't know about Kyle, about Jesse, about any of it. 3 days later, he vanished from her socials. I hope it means he got out, but I don't know. Then Kyle found out it wasn't me, it was Anya. She saw Vera's ad online, showed it to Kyle as a joke. His face went pale. He left the room. I followed. He was on the floor of the kitchen, back against the fridge, silent tears. She's still doing it, he whispered. She's still doing it. I nodded, sat down beside him. He looked at me, eyes bloodshot but clear. I need to do something, and he did. Kyle reached out to Daniel, to Jesse's family, to the brother I'd messaged, to the neighbor, to the sister, the psychologist. They started a group, private at first, then public. They launched a site, cultofconnection.org. Kyle gave an interview, anonymous but raw. It went viral. And Vera? She filed a defamation suit against Kyle, against Daniel, against Jesse's family. said they were persecuting a woman healer for daring to love outside the norm. But she forgot one thing. Kyle was ready now. He had receipts, testimony, statements, screenshots, backups, and support. The case was dismissed. Vera vanished from Instagram 2 weeks later. That was 2 months ago. Today, Kyle is still healing, still scarred, but not scared anymore. He speaks at abuse recovery groups, trains as a counselor, wants to work with young men who think they're too strong to be victims. And me? I keep writing this story, other stories, because silence protects no one. Sometimes I still think of Vera, of her smile, her voice, that mix of warmth and poison. I think of Jesse, of his brother, of the boys who might still be in her orbit. And I wonder how many Veras are out there, how many faces like hers, how many versions. I'll never forget what Kyle said one night after a support group. I still don't know if she ever really loved me. I told him the truth. She didn't love you, Kyle. She consumed you, and you survived her. He nodded, slowly, then said something that's stuck with me ever since. Surviving doesn't mean I won. It just means I'm free to try again, but I still keep that folder, just in case she ever resurfaces.